Hi, this is Joe Markley. Not at the Capitol, not even on my front porch today, although it's April, it's a little cold for that, but still desiring to bring you up to date on a couple of issues of extreme importance, in my opinion, to the state of Connecticut. Those issues are a proposed amendment to allow early voting and a perennial issue, tolls. So let me take the early voting one first. There was a proposal to allow early voting through constitutional amendment, which is what it would require before the legislature, supported by the Democratic Party and all of their allies and all of the progressives in the General Assembly. A very dangerous proposal from my point of view, because I believe the Democrats are in a position to take advantage of these changes in election law, as we saw in the last election. They're very well organized, they're very motivated. The Republican Party isn't there right now. If we allow early voting on top of all the other changes that have been made in our voting laws in recent years, I think that it will make it that much harder for us to elect a Republican governor the next time around, or to elect Republican legislators or win any other seats, because the Democrats will jump on this opportunity. However, because election law is in our Constitution, it would take a constitutional amendment to allow the General Assembly to enact a form of early voting. That amendment can only pass in one of two ways. Either it has to pass in two consecutive legislatures by a majority vote, 50% plus one, and then go on the ballot to be approved by the voters, or it has to pass in one legislature with 3/4 of the vote or more, and then it would go immediately on the ballot in the next statewide election. When I say two consecutive legislatures, that's not two sessions. It has to be two different legislatures. So if it passes the legislature this year, they'd have to wait till next year's legislative election and then vote on it again 2 years from now. And then it would go on a subsequent ballot. The earliest it could be would be 2022. In the meantime, there's a chance that we could take back the legislature. We had a tie in the Senate just last year. In any case, we'd have an extra election, an extra gubernatorial election, without a change in our election laws. However, if the Democrats get 3/4 in both chambers, then next year the early voting proposal will be on the ballot. And come 2022, when there's a gubernatorial election, there's an excellent chance that early voting would be in place. I think that could be a disaster for Republicans. Now, the concerning news is, even though in the committee that the amendment came out of, the Government Administrations and Elections Committee, there was no Republican support at all for the amendment. The party subsequently went into negotiations to try to come up with a better version of the early voting proposal. I feel like these negotiations are always very dangerous, because even the best people with the best intentions become attached to the product of their negotiating. And I think in this case, good Republicans who don't want to lose to Democrats, who are not really fans of early voting, felt that they had come up with something that was good enough that Republicans could support it. And in the House, in fact, they did. The majority of House Republicans supported the early voting amendment, so it got the 75% required. The only firewall left is the state Senate. As early as this week, this amendment on early voting is likely to come before the state Senate. If Senate Republicans vote against it, it cannot go on the ballot next year because they won't get 3/4 of the vote. If Senate Republicans acquiesce, as their brethren did in the House, we could have early voting on the ballot next year, and it could be in place for our next gubernatorial election in 2022. I think that's a mistake. I don't blame anyone. I don't draw any conclusions. I think sometimes when you're up in Hartford, you get swept up in what's going on and you lose track of what's really important. I'm talking to you today to encourage you to contact Senate Republicans and let them know that you don't want them to support this early voting amendment. You can reach their switchboard at 800-842-1421. If you know members of the Senate Republican caucus, if you worked on the campaign of one of my former colleagues in the Senate, or if you're a town committee member that lives in one of their districts, please contact them and let them know that you don't want them to compromise on bad bills. You want them to fight bad bills. And this is our opportunity. But it has to happen soon. The vote could be as early as perhaps Wednesday of this week. So 800-842-1421 is the number for the Senate Republican Caucus. And I urge you, especially if you know and perhaps have helped on the campaign of a Republican senator, to make sure that he or she knows how how concerned you are about this early voting proposal and how strongly you urge them to vote against it. Now, tolls. We all know that Ned Lamont went back on his promise during the campaign that the tolls were only going to be imposed on truckers. And now they're going to be imposed on all of us. And believe me, if they come, you're not going to like what you get. It's not clear they're coming, though, despite the confident words from Lamont, from Speaker Arasimowicz, and others. It's clear that they don't have a plan in place yet. And one of the reasons is because their own members are nervous about supporting this toll proposal. And the more public opposition they see, the more nervous they're going to get, the harder it's going to be for the Democrats to put together a toll plan, and the better chance we have of avoiding this a new and devastating form of taxation. If you're against tolls, No Tolls CT is the group that's fighting it. You can go to their website, notollsct.org, and sign their petition. They have almost 100,000 signatures already. More important, perhaps, No Tolls CT is planning a rally at the Capitol on Saturday, May 18th, beginning at 12 noon. We have to make this a success. We have to show people that there is opposition to tolls in Connecticut and that we have to find a better way. My good friend Len Suzio has pointed out we don't really need the toll revenue. First of all, because the projected costs of infrastructure repair have been inflated grotesquely. And second, because we're going to get billions of dollars more in federal aid than current state planning anticipates. So if you agree that tolls are not needed or not the solution, if you agree that we're taxed enough already, please mark your calendar, May 18th, 12 noon, State Capitol, and please go to notollsct.org and do what you can to help the effort against tolls. I'm Joe Markley. I'm still in the fight. I hope you are as well, and I'll try to keep you posted on these issues and others in the coming weeks. Thank you.